Welcome to that spiritual, actual, factual answers to questions you're asking. You find them inside you, recite you, reciting the records of cash. We laughing, we drafting the passion to vary. It's time for that comedy, dramedy, all of the fanciest, catchiest acronyms. Listeners, listen, we traveling. Conscious is always unraveling. The reading you're having is mapping you back to your natural habitat. Abracadabra, it's magicless, fascinating. To top it off, the host, all the classiest. Now, what were you asking for? All of the answers? What? All the answers.
Well, hey, Katie Rubin.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I feel like it's been a minute since we actually recorded an episode.
Oh, I was going to say, really? It's literally been 1 minute since we saw each other.
That's true. It's not been that long.
Yeah,
for the
I guess
listener,
so.
Just had a session with Katie and Katie's associated body worker person. I'm not sure what to call that collaboration.
Well, we have like a team healing process we do using Lisa's chiropractic and NET and other abilities and my spiritual downloady, psychic awarenessy, energy transmission-y tools.
Yeah.
And
Just
we
add
do-
Y to everything, and that
Yeah.
makes it an adverb, and there we go.
And very soon, just for the listener, we're going to have a page on my website and a page on her site where you can read about it and purchase a session.
Cool.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was really interesting. For me, it was very subtle because that I'm always, I talk to other people who have just these massive, almost traumatic experiences doing any kind of healing where like black tar comes pouring out of their anus or, demons come screaming out or they feel like they're being strangled or they're crying uncontrollably. And that's their experience. And I'm always kind of like hungry for that experience, but that's then me trying to put something on it that it ain't.
Except what's interesting to me is every time you've ever described a process we've gone through as subtle, I'm watching you go through it. I'm feeling the things with you that are moving, and it's anything but subtle. So I think I don't know what you mean.
It is subtle to me because it's like, oh, I have a little cramp in my throat, and now I have less of a cramp in my throat. But what you're seeing, because you're still perceiving it on a level that I don't feel like I truly have access to.
I see.
Or
Because,
whatever.
There was
Yeah.
like stuff in your shoulders and stuff in your spine and stuff in the heart and stuff in the throat and stuff in the head. Then more stuff in the throat, then more stuff in the shoulders, then more stuff in the heart.
Yeah.
Like lots of layers. And we went through. I just have to say this because for the listener, that what you said could land for people like nothing happens in these sessions.
No, that's not it at all.
That's what I don't want to communicate. So
No.
I'm going to say this and then I want to hear more from you.
Yeah.
We went through like age 6, age 17, age 20, 22, 27, 40, 42 of like layers of resentment, fear, self-image stuff. I won't share your secrets, but like lots of stuff moved and happened. But I don't want that as an invalidation of your experience of it not being huge, like volcanoes of lava.
Yeah.
But it's hard to hear that because I'm like, I just transmitted a whole lot of light that moved a whole lot of heaviness out of your system and brought a lot more consciousness and freedom.
Yeah.
So it's hard to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think we're in agreement on that. Like, it's actually, I don't know if I'll say frustrating, but it's a little frustrating to be like, I am so glad to hear that is what was happening.
Right.
Because my experience of it is very like, kind of quiet and a little bit, a little something moved there.
You don't remember like the big, deep, heavy breathing you were doing and the subtle
There was
moaning?
one moment where I got a little teary. Like that, and I was breathing deep to breathing into that. Yeah.
But that was like minutes in a row. The moaning and the breathing, you don't remember that?
There was a moment of moaning.
It was more than a moment. It was like several moments that add up to minutes.
Yeah.
So you're saying you remember those minutes, they just weren't intense?
That's it.
Okay.
I never is totally the wrong word. I think, part of it is my own, like, I'm putting an image over the experience that then it has to live up to rather than just being open to the experience.
Sure.
Which I also mostly am. Mostly it's just like, good, let me just fucking feel whatever I fucking feel, and whatever I fucking feel is right.
Yeah.
But but you know, an example of like the difference. I remember when I went to this one, not chiropractor, but PT guy, and he adjusted me in a way that I walked out of his office and then broke down in tears because I felt profoundly and significantly changed from that moment on.
Of course. Yeah.
And that just, and I know I am profoundly and significantly changed even from this less traumatic experience or less watershed perception experience. But I don't have that like, oh God, it happened. I have a, cool, that was great, you know?
Yeah, I will say it is interesting because of how much I don't experience it that way. And I'm not talking about for you. I'm talking about when I go in.
Yeah.
The bigness of the shifts is pretty intense. So I'm like, what must that be like? I guess I also wonder what keeps you trying if it's so underwhelming. Like what keeps you doing it?
Because I know that there's always work to do. I know that. And I just know there's shit there. Like, you know, it's something we've talked about in the past where like relative to some, I have less demanding healing to be done. So it's not like you got to fucking do this or you will die,
right?
Which is what a lot of humans have. I have, you know, you'd be good if you took care of this. And that's the level to which I, you know, and so it may be that it's almost like the experience is in scale with the desperation or something like that. But then I don't want to fucking compare myself to anybody is the other thing. I would like to just have my experience.
Yeah.
And stop trying to have something else.
Right. Of course, to that. And separate from that, I would say the thing you brought to the table is not a small thing. It affects like a pretty big, important area of your life, no?
Yeah.
So there might be some value to a certain amount of commitment or desperation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what keeps me coming back is knowing that it is very important and deep and important.
Got it.
And I would.
That makes sense.
I would love to have a watershed experience because that would feel more exciting.
Yeah.
You know, it's sexier to have a watershed experience than to have a like great work. Okay, we got more to do. That's all it is. It's almost like a 3 issue. Like it's an issue of like, here's something that happens to me, and this is how my fucking head works, and that'll lead me to another story.
Okay.
Is while it's happening, I'm having an experience, and then there will be a few moments where I start figuring out how I'm going to report on this. How would I describe what is happening? Later, when I am asked, what will I say?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll start composing and like, get the fuck out of there, get back in, get back in, get back in, stop composing, get back in. But I compose, I try and describe the experience as it's happening, which if it just took me and rode me like a bucking bronco, I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't have the bandwidth to have those thoughts. I would be being ridden by the experience, you know? If the experience were like, here it comes like a wave. And that has happened. That has absolutely happened before.
Yeah.
There's no question. So, yeah. And I am deeply grateful for the opportunity and the insistence to keep going. The insistence by you and other loved ones to not just go, you're good, you know?
Yeah.
And I and to myself for insisting on it too. Like I'm proud of myself for going forward. But because it's subtle enough, I could just be like, yeah, it's fine.
Sure.
And get boring again.
That's fair.
Which is the fucking thing I'm trying to work on anyway.
Right.
Is uncapping the you're fine thing. Uncapping the kind of middle of the road. You know, one of the sets of words that she was working with me on was something like indecisive, come see, come saw, everything's, maybe. I don't remember, but it was that
wishy-washy
that
is
wishy-washy space. And that's, I mean, I've been in that space for far too long. And I feel like that's, you know, it doesn't feel good to live in that space. It's not interesting to other people. It's not good in relationship. It's not good in my own life. Yeah.
Sure. I hear that. Yeah. That sounds pretty motivating. Yeah. That makes sense. Rock on.
Yeah.
What was that going to lead you to? You said that's
So the other, this takes us right to contemporary stories of things that have happened in the last few weeks. I've been doing my show and it's running and it's going well. And the director has been very demanding. And we really, at times I was like rolling my eyes at him because I felt like he was being kind of full of himself in a lot of his demands. But ultimately, I do believe in him as a demanding director who wants you to take it to where it deserves to go. Like we can always do good enough, but he has a quote on his sitting on his whatever his binder that says something like art exists on the other side of that line, where like we do a lot of our work sort of right up to the line. That's good, great, you're doing good. But what if you stepped over that line and stepped into?
When you say we do work, who's we?
We just artists in general, like performers, for example, like, you're doing a show and yeah, that was great. It could be better. You guys could risk more. You could go farther. You could open your hearts to it more. You could, and that's what we were always being asked to do. Anyway, the show was going fine. And then there was a couple days where two things happened. I was having a rough time. And so I started meditating again, which I haven't been doing. And then I one day was having quite a day. I was unhappy. I was sad. I was frustrated. I was feeling a lot of feelings. And I went on a long walking meditation with I don't remember if I was like had music playing or whatever. And I went and got coffee, which I haven't been doing. But my body was like, you A, want coffee, B, deserve coffee. C, I would like some coffee. So I went and got coffee. And then I listened to music that made me cry. And I know a few songs that'll always get to me. And I just needed that like extra push, that extra shove off the ledge. And it was great. And I was having a time. And that night in the so I got my feelings, stayed there. And that night in the show, I was on stage and I was really aware. Suddenly I became like aware of the texture of the pants on my legs. And I panicked because I have a couple of costume changes, like I do some underdressing and stuff. And I panicked and I thought, you're wearing the wrong pants. You're in the other costume. Just because I was feeling them and I hadn't felt them before. And I kind of glanced and I was like, no, you're still wearing the right. And I'm on stage having this experience and things like that keep happening. I almost feel like I'm high.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like when you're taking, like if you took ecstasy and you're just like, I can really feel the skin and I can feel the textures of things and the way people appear to you, they come into you a slightly different way. They kind of glide into your perception and go into you instead of being in front of you, And I felt like I was fucking high and I was popping in and out. Like then later, one of the other actors was like, you had a fucking great show, man. You were like killing me in those scenes. And I was like, whew, when I was there, great. I'm glad to hear that. But I was also like up in my head and then I had to just drive myself back into my body. What I realized was that I have not been living in my fucking body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, all of that sounds like dissociative.
Yeah, I've been dissociative. Even when I haven't been fully dissociative, I've been physically dissociative for a really long time. Like even the idea of like dropping into my own body has been a mental exercise and it hasn't felt fully like dropped in. So like, listening to my partners, not just for my cues, but for what they're saying to me, just the basics of acting. Like I was doing a really good mechanical job, but it was coming all from the shoulders up, basically. And so, but the idea of, I fucking felt like I was on drugs, Katie. It was so bizarre. And so the next day.
Can you say, but what are more words you would use to describe how you felt? Because side note, people not in their body are the ones that don't have watershed experiences in the healing session.
Yeah.
Just saying the two are the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, carry on. So, but what did it feel like when you say hi?
Like I said, like aware of physical textures in all parts of my body, like not just aware in my head, but like my skin was feeling the pants.
Okay.
It felt honestly like a light ecstasy trip. And even in the same way that I was also hearing people more emotionally.
Okay.
And when I wasn't noticing it with my brain, I was just having the experience. It was great. It's the best acting I've done in a long time,
So that's it, was the heightened sensations of the pants? It was
just the heightened sensation, but then the other thing that goes along with that is when I am high, I'm aware of being high, and I sometimes will pull out and be like, ooh, what does it look like you are high? And so that also that not exactly paranoid, but that sort of self-consciousness, that self-awareness of that feeling those two things combined made me feel like when I'm on drugs, which is very rarely. I mean, it lasted the whole show. And then the next day I sort of checked in with myself and I was like, okay, well, go deeper. And that day I meditated and had coffee. And that night I was able to have a similar experience without being like externally aware of it. Like I was able to just be like, yeah, there you go. And I was able to hear my partners, listen to my partners, be on stage with them in a way that, and I fucking kicked that from then on. So now, just for my own, it might be just because the ritual of it has become, I've just, because I gave up coffee. I'm not doing coffee anymore. Nope. Every day I have a show, I'm going to meditate and I'm going to have coffee because those two things turn up the body for me for now. And I'll get back off coffee when I'm done with the show, but it's a little bit like a baseball player, wants to wear the right shirt.
For sure. When you have the coffee, would it be fair to say that the coffee connects you to your emotional experience or your physical experience more fully?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a great question. I think it turns up the sort of gain on my physical awareness, physical experience, so that I can hear it. Does that make sense? So then I can be like, there you are. I hear you. Now I can like get into you. Whereas when it's more muted, I take it for granted more, maybe, or I don't.
Well, that's another symptom of that. Just sounds like dissociation to me. You're not connected to it, so you need to turn the volume up on it to hear it.
Yeah, and I think honestly, the caffeine is a tiny piece of it. I honestly I feel good about the meditation part where I'm just making sure I take some minutes every day to sit in breath and drop into my body and
yeah. Well, I mean, feel good or not, rather than judge it as a good way to feel your feelings and then there's the bad way, it's just looking at understanding what it's doing and what that points you to next. So it sounds like meditation helps you get, I think this is what I'm hearing you say, more connected to yourself, more grounded, more emotionally present. And the coffee is stimulating that for you at this moment as well. That's great. Okay, so you have some tools that work for this time.
For this moment, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I had this awareness during our session. Anything that I share that we don't want to share, we can obviously cut. But where I was like, like it came to me, not a thought I was having, right? It was given. We've been doing Cassidy a disservice by this joke we do a lot, you and I, where it's like, oh, my childhood was so perfect, so I'm so good.
Yeah.
Because it reinforcing that with that joke keeps you minimizing the severity of your own dissociative tendencies. There is a pretty strong like neck up experience for you, which is quite dissociative, like quite heavily dissociative, which you're right. If you were in more pain about it, you'd be more motivated to do something different. Okay, fine. But I just want to own for myself, I don't want to participate anymore in minimizing what goes on for you by joking about how perfect your childhood was, because whatever happened, even if it was one moment in time, the birth trauma, maybe, or the thing we talked about, the other interesting thing we could share about here,
yeah,
the in utero idea.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's fine. You can share that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever the thing was, or series of things, it has created a thing that means it's hard for you to be embodied.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty big deal. So I don't want to minimize that anymore by being like, you're all good, everything's perfect for you. I kind of like don't agree. And I think because my perspective before was like, I mean, I understand how we got to that joke and why we were making it. It's an obvious joke to make.
Yeah.
But it's such a pattern that most people have in our culture of like, well, nobody raped me, so I'm all set.
Yeah.
I wasn't gunpoint mugged, so like, what do I have to be? I don't have any trauma. And it's like, that's how people stay in that, what's a word we could use to describe that? Numbed out middle place?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Because I'm so much less bad than someone else, the comparison game.
I don't deserve the healing. They need it more.
Yeah, or like there's nothing here to heal.
Yeah.
It's like, well, there clearly is, so maybe we shouldn't minimize it anymore.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it makes sense. And I
Yeah.
think it's, yeah, 100%. And what comes up for me right now is, so one of the things that was coming up in the session today was stuff with my throat. And that has been a thing for a while now, and there's the obvious sort of more psychological, metaphorical part of like, oh, you need to speak your truth, or you're not letting yourself speak out. But also the image of where I'm cut off is right there. It is right at that point. Like it's hard to drop below the throat.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that cramping of the throat, or whatever we want to call it, is another illustration of that, the throttling of the whatever, of the energy. You can't go past this because I'm going to close it up, so you can't get through that tube.
Right. I mean, it's a pretty big deal. Like, it's a thing I've worked with people a lot on, breaking the emotional walls at the throat that keep the head and the body separate.
Yep.
And I think it's 100% the, how do I say? It's the cause isn't quite the right word. It's the something of the issue you brought to the table.
Uh-huh.
So it's a real thing that we need to commit some time and focus and energy to.
Yeah.
And yes, you had a lovely childhood, but some shit went on.
Yeah.
Because you're a person and shit goes on for people.
Live in a world that things happen.
Yes, exactly. So the idea, I'll share this because it's fun, I think. The idea that we're talking around is the idea Lisa was getting, that Cassidy may have absorbed a twin in utero, which is a thing that happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes there'll be two babies, basically, but one doesn't make it. And the like physical pieces of the being that are starting to form and coagulate and congeal into a person in utero get absorbed by the other baby sometimes. It'll also happen where they get absorbed by the mother's uterus. It was really interesting because I got such a yes on it when she said it. I was like, oh, that's yes.
Maybe it's Caleb. I have, Denise and I have an ongoing joke. So I have this weird thing on my hand that's called like Dupuytren's contracture, but it really feels like it has its own personality. Like it's these bumpy parts and little growths in my palm, sort of. And the joke is that's my undeveloped twin. So like that concept has been a humorous concept in my life already, but maybe it is. Maybe that's Caleb. Maybe I need to talk to Caleb. He's already been named.
Anyway, that's funny that you guys have a joke about that.
Yeah, that's a trip that it came up as a thing. I'm happy and gung-ho and totally game to keep going with this. I would love to open my life up more. Because even that little bit of physical, like, I mean, I feel like that thing that happened on stage was a breakthrough moment actually for me. It was significant enough that I like I said, it felt high because it felt external to me almost, like it was like it happened to me. And that's because I was not in control of a particular, what have you, of a particular, I wasn't in control of the experience, which I often am.
Yeah. And so for you, what are you saying about that? What did that do for you?
I fucking loved it. I want more of that. I wasn't out of control, and that's the difference, because that's my fear always, is losing control. Right. But what I've been actually kind of hungry for, that is actually the thing. I'm a little bit hungry for that watershed experience that is out of my control. I want, that idea of like, oh, there it comes pouring out. I can't stop it or whatever. But there was a much not super loud version of that, but it still was significant in my perception. I felt something happening that I didn't request to happen actively with my brain.
And you're looking for more of that.
Oh, yeah. It's great.
You ever do drugs?
Yeah, sometimes.
Does that...
Haven't for a while. It's been a minute. Yeah, it happens when I do drugs. Like I said, I've done ecstasy and it felt a lot like that. And I've had profound emotional experiences when I did ecstasy because of it, like connections to, I discovered my love for my brother and he was nowhere near it, but it broke something open in me. And I just was like, oh my God, I love my brother so much.
That's nice. That's really nice.
That was like 20 years ago, but still, I still love him.
What?
So how are you, Kate? What, you have more?
Well, I'm just, I do. There's a lot in that moment. I'm thinking about how to approach it and what to ask or say. Because it's a dissociative moment, I'm wondering what was happening in that moment that triggered it on stage. Do you have any ideas? The druggy, fabric aware moment.
I feel like it was the opposite of a dissociative moment. I feel like it was a finally pulling out of dissociative.
Like you got real present?
Yeah. And then it freaked me out a little bit because
I see.
I didn't see it coming.
Oh, and now I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know
It
what
was
those feel
great.
like.
I loved that I felt that way, but it freaked me out a little bit in a few, like there were times when I was on stage, I went, am I wearing the right pants? That's why I think it's funny, because I was sure I was wearing the wrong pants.
Okay. That's like an experience I had when I was 6 that I worked with my therapist. It was a big, like, you know how you have memories from childhood that just like won't leave you, and you'll be like, why am I thinking about the candy wrapper when I was 9? Like random specific memories that come back and come back. They're not random. They're tools for dropping in and processing. And I'll share this one because it's like what you're describing. When I was 6, I went into the bathroom. I was just peeing. And then for whatever reason, I looked in the mirror after I peed, and all of a sudden, I looked in my own eyes, and it was like balloons. All of a sudden, I dropped into my body, and it was terrifying. It was like I was right there with myself. I was present in the room, and this shot of adrenaline and terror went through me, and I immediately popped out of my body again. And I realized in that moment, oh, I'm not here, because I was here for a second, and then it was terrifying to be here. So I went back out. And that moment was so impactful. I imagine as a 6-year-old to suddenly feel very alive and present, terrified, and then gone again. Like it did not leave me. So I used that in healing sessions and learned ultimately that it was a moment I was being shown the depth of my trauma. Like you have to have a fair amount of trauma your nervous system is holding to like just be nowhere near embodied. And then to suddenly be embodied and be like, I'm out. Now my reaction was terror because I had a lot of things to be afraid of at that time. In your case, it sounds like you got real present all of a sudden and you liked it a lot, because presence is actually kind of great when you don't have terror trauma in your body.
Even specifically just as an actor, it's kind of what you want to be 100% of the time, ideally. And we have tools to work around when we're not, but.
Mm-hmm. But so that's a good indication of how much time is being spent not present. So it's cool because you're lucky that already for you, when you get present, it feels good to be present. I had to do years of work just for it to feel safe enough to be present, to even try to be present. So you're just like, oh yeah, that feels good. Presence is good. So now all we got to do is break apart whatever it is that keeps you from just fully being in that all the time, which is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And good news, bad news, the more present you get, the more watershed those sessions will be, which is sometimes exhausting. Watch out.
Yeah.
Careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
But it's cool too, of course.
Yeah, the thing that came up today was the thing about the throat. And I'm just aware, especially over the last year or so, how often my throat is the sort of focus of my fears. And like I'll get something will feel funny in my throat. I've got COVID. Like, that's what my brain says. And then I'll spend 24 hours like freaking out about how my throat feels, or why is my voice tired all the time? And it shouldn't be, because I know how to use my voice. I'm a trained actor.
Yeah.
But it's tired all the time because it's being constricted somehow. We did some work on it here on the cast, and I started drinking a certain tea and taking chlorophyll. Slacked off a little on that and get back on that, and it helped. But that's treating the symptom and not the... Right,
that the trauma is there in the throat that keeps you separate, these two parts separate, head and body.
Yeah.
So great, we're just going to keep working with that until it's not there anymore. Did you notice there was a cool moment where at the end there was all that Arabic coming through?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was neat. That was because the piece that was moving off of the throat in that moment wasn't going to move by being present physically or emotionally. It required spiritual intervention. It's just fun for me because they come out of nowhere. I don't see them coming. And then boom, we're doing that now, I guess.
That was cool.
Yeah.
I always wonder about that for you, like how much of that is you going, you know what he needs right now? This prayer.
No.
But most of the time it's...
Thank you for asking. No, 100% of the time it's not me. It's never me going like, I know what would be useful. It just starts to occur. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're doing this now.
Yeah.
That's why this shit that's the only reason, frankly, this shit remains interesting is because I don't know what's coming a lot of the time.
Wow.
There's only so much being with people's trauma I really want to do, to be honest with you. But that is pretty fucking interesting because God decides things. The universe goes, well, you're pretty aligned with light, so light needs to come now. So here you go. And it's like, okay. It's wild.
Which chakra is the throat chakra? That is the
5.
5.
Yeah.
What's the color?
Let's see. Green. This is indigo. Yellow? No, yellow is solar plexus.
Blue?
No, that indigo is the...
Well, there's a blue and an indigo.
Oh, okay. Well, but I think the crown is blue. No, the crown is purple. No, the crown is white? Let's find out.
Red, orange, yellow. It really works with Roy G. Biv.
It's right here. Yeah, it's blue.
Blue. Okay.
Third eye is purple. Crown is indigo.
Right.
Which I guess is just a kind of purple, sort of.
Yeah. Indigo is also kind of a blue, but violet is purple, so that's the
violet.
Biv.
That's
Biv.
right.
That's the Biv part.
Uh-huh.
Blue, indigo, violet.
Uh-huh. Cool. What else? Do we need to discuss other things?
Probably.
Me.
Yeah, let's talk about you, Katie. What's going on? Your show is done. You got sick.
Real sick.
Real sick.
Which I do know was like 3 months of there's no room to get sick. And then just the body being like, oh, you're not going to choose to sit down? Cool. I'm going to sit you down.
Can I ask you about sort of your own off-gassing from now having finished the show? Like, how do you feel about it all? What's going on? Are you feeling about it yet?
Yeah. It's going to be a slow burn till I have what I would call clarity about anything. I would say I have more clarity now. I feel quite proud of the play itself, the acting work, the directing work.
Which you should 100%. I saw it, by the way, and you know that, but I don't know if they know I saw it. It was fucking so well directed. Everybody was right on their fucking game. I loved what was happening. Timing was impeccable, sharp as a fucking tack. And, you know, it makes me dread seeing. There's some shows I kind of have to see, and I just know, like comically, I'm going to be like, nope. Like Friends are in some shows right now where I'm a little worried, kind of bracing myself for. I didn't have to do that even once. And, you know, going into sort of what we would consider like, oh, you put this show into this theater. It's a nice theater, but it's also kind of like, you know, done all by duct tape and spit practically, but it didn't look like that at all. You know, it looked, well, when we do things ourselves and have very little resources to work with, we you know, it's going to be some level of good, but it didn't. My point being, I expected even like a little less polish on it. Not because I don't trust you, but because I know what you are working with, you know?
Well, you know, though, that I had $30,000 to work with. And that is what the Lesher Center or Capitol Stage or SF Playhouse would have.
For one of their...
For any single production, yeah.
Okay.
So it wasn't really spit. It was money.
It was real money.
Yeah.
And hired real people to come in and build things.
Yeah, I had a full design team and pro actors, and there really wasn't a lot of spit involved.
I was really more thinking of, honestly, of my assumptions about what the sort of physical reality would be, you know.
You mean the venue?
Set and, yeah, like the set in the venue.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I had lower expectations.
Okay.
That's.
I think the venue is stunning, actually.
Yeah, and it was great.
Yeah.
No, it's great. My point being, I had, you know, everything that I could have had of like, oh, give it the old college try, condescending vibe of watching something. None of that existed. Somebody said something about our show the other day. Our friend Rebecca Pingree came and saw my show, and she said, God, it was so nice not having to do any of the work. You know, sometimes as an audience member, you're kind of like blowing, like trying to keep their balloon aloft, even if they're doing a good job, but there's still a sense of like, yeah, I'm here. I'm going to keep your balloon aloft with my attention. And not having to do that is a relief as an audience member. And it's a rarity. And I didn't have to do it at all. And that sounds like faint praise, like, oh, that's your baseline. No, that's huge. Because, the most, well-established, well-funded theater companies, we do that all the time. We sit in the audience and go, this is pretty good. I'm going to keep it good.
I don't ever do that, so I don't really relate to what you're saying.
You just say, fuck them?
No, I'm just like, this is bad. And I'm upset that I'm here. I don't try to help. I don't quite know.
I feel that way when it's bad, but I think when something is pretty good and has a lot going for it, I can't speak for you. I resonated with what Rebecca said is my point. And that was this idea of watching something that you believe in and care about, but still have to do a little of the work as an audience member to kind of make it really fully live.
Okay. Like, what's an example of the work you would be doing that makes it live for you? I want to understand this better.
I don't know, like, no, I can't think of an example. It's just sort of, it's more of an energy or an attention thing.
You mean like you're just like being positive and trying to be like, that's okay?
Yeah. Oh, that wasn't as good as it could have been, but they're doing a good job.
I see. Uh-huh. Yeah.
And when you have no moments like that, it feels very good.
Yeah. I guess I feel like that should never happen.
But it happens all the time.
It does?
Yeah. Happens to shows that I'm in, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, and again, it's energetic too, to a certain extent. Like, again, just reporting what someone else said. She was like, first 5 lines out of our mouths. She was like, oh, we're good. You just know it. And there are times when I'm in a show and the curtain goes up and I start going, I wonder if this is going to be very good. Oh, it was pretty good, instead of just fucking solid. And that was a long way of just saying, Katie, your show was fucking solid.
Thanks.
Yes, of course, that's how it always should be. And it just isn't.
Yeah. I can't, I'm not comfortable putting stuff out that is that.
Sometimes we don't have full control over that,
I mean, you can fire people.
Yeah.
It's hard. No, it's hard.
But then you fire them too late and then you don't have a chance to recover.
There's a lot of challenges. Yeah.
Or some part of the show doesn't come together that you can't really fire.
No, of course.
There's a technical problem and it ruins the pace. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But you can also always show up and push harder and make most of that work. Like when you were talking earlier about your director, I was like, oh, I'm like that. Like I never, ever am like, we're doing fine. I so have none of that going on that it's almost like, it can be pathological. It can be like, I'm not dropping any moments and sort of like winging it. I won't do that. And I think that's what makes bad direction is when people are like gentle. and what's hard about that for me personally is as a person, I don't want to be that way. Like as a person, I don't want to be up people's asses telling them how to be. I don't really believe in it. I have a second line body. We're very live and let live. But as a director, I just don't believe in not like this can never happen on earth. But for me, I can't be part of something where I'm not like super pushing people. Whatever the line was you were describing, I can't do anything that isn't past the line because I just can't. I don't know how you sleep at night. Now, I don't think that's always good. And in fact, back to your question about like, how do I feel about it all? The Herculean amount of effort and energy it takes to keep everybody on their toes that hard. Like I have to keep all the designers operating at a 10 or above, the stage manager who was young and semi-green, but pretty fucking great, operating at a 10 or above, all the actors who are tired and tech is hard and they just want to lay around and talk to each other all the time at a 10 or higher. It's like you gotta be the whip cracker if you're gonna have something that isn't like that was okay. And being that whip cracker that much, it's like it turns out I'm pretty good at doing that. And it's really hard. It was hard on me because, again, I'm not willing to put it out if it's all right. Like I just can't handle that. There were elements to our production. For me, I hated our lighting situation a lot. And it was because they had 12 instruments at this fucking venue.
Right. These are the things that I assumed going in, like, well, they're probably going to have some lighting challenges because venues are often shitty on that. Yeah, which we have.
So I'm not okay with that. And I think like that's kind of it. That is in terms of the show itself. I was like, I'm not happy with the lights and I'm going to have to let that go. But anything else, I just don't let anything go ever. Because it doesn't go well if you be chill about it and let things go. Now, but what that adds up to for me is I need a major amount of downtime now. Like my body collapsed. I had to be sick and tired for 2 weeks. I'm just now coming out and being like, oh, hello, world, the sun is shining and maybe I'll be a person now. Because it's really tough to live that way. And it is an interesting sort of... two opposing things I carry inside myself, like to have the ability to do a thing at that level, but the not sure if I want to do that to myself again-ness of it. Because I told myself going in, like, we're going to be light about this and we're going to not be perfectionistic. And then I was like, that is not satisfying for me. It's not satisfying to put mediocre work out at all. So I can't. It's not my thing. So then I'm being excellent. And then in order to be excellent, it's so intense on my nervous system. It was hard. Now, obviously, one of the main reasons it was hard is I was producing at the same time. So I was doing 6 people's jobs. It's too much. I just took on too much. And if I were in my 20s, that might be okay, but I'm very much not. So I don't know where I sit now is like, okay, if I'm directing, I don't want to produce. And if I'm producing, I don't want to direct. And I don't know that I want to produce if I'm not directing. So maybe I just want to direct. I don't know. I'm letting it all sift through because...
And then the question is, do you want to direct for someone else's company then? Or do you want to direct in a company that you have control over, but have someone else do the producing work?
Well, both of those things are fine by me, but more the second. But that's today. And I'm not sure. So I'm letting it all sift through because it was so intense. I'm just kind of trying to get my nervous system back together. Yeah. So I'm proud of the show. And it used to be when I was younger, all I cared about was it's like, we did an amazing show. That's the whole thing. Now I'm like, whew, but at what cost? I was talking to, you're making me think about, I was talking about this with Rubin Grijalva. And because I wanted to produce, a piece with him, and we've been back and forth and talking, and we have some fun ideas of things we could put together. Anyway, I said something about, this was before I did the show. Let me be transparent and vulnerable. Before I got into production, I was like, I'm really intent on not being one of those companies where the people involved become so toxic and sour and weird that working with them is so exhausting and negative that it's not worth it to anyone. And he was like, well, is that the people or is that the situation of being a theater producer that makes people that way? And I honestly, it's embarrassing to me that I never thought of it that way. Like, I'm embarrassed that it never occurred to me. Maybe the reality of producing is so hard, particularly theater, that you kind of have to just do whatever you have to do to make it happen. And you become this sort of like what's the word? The gutter dwelling rage troll to like get fucking shit handled. It's the sort of CEO syndrome. Like if you're not built to be a CEO, you're going to become something that like, maybe it doesn't feel great in order to get it all done.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, and then of course doing it, I kept thinking about that conversation with him and being like, oh yeah, here we are. And I am proud of myself because at least with the actors, I did a great job of being who I wanted to be in rehearsal. I felt really good about, I was a whip cracker, but I was also like present and connected and considerate of their feelings and communicative and asking questions and caring. I'm really happy about that. Once we got into the space, though, there was so much to deal with the venue and the technical elements that I did my best to be, and I'm still proud of how I was, but in particular, dealing with that venue and the people that run it, it was really hard, really hard. It was really squeezing, what's that? Trying to get water out of a stone, blood out of a stone.
Blood from a stone.
Yeah. And it hurts my heart to even think about how, like, the degree to which I would have to, like, think about how can I possibly say the words I need to say in a way that they will hear it and do it and not just go to like, it was the exact thing you're describing of, it's fine. And I'd be like, it's really not fine. It has to be 80 degrees, 80% more than what it is, 80. And they're like, what? Why? You're the worst. And I'd be like, no, this is just professional quality. What? Anyway, so the stress of like that was really tough. So then you go, okay, well, you need to work in a space where people understand what you're doing so you don't run into that. Okay, noted. So for next time, if there's a next time, it needs to be in an environment where it's understood where we're all on the same page about the quality we're going for. Because I can't feel like the only one who gives a lot of fucks. It's very painful for me to be like, I was holding the standards of the whole ship together, and there were 14, 15 people involved who, half of whom wouldn't have minded if we just took naps through the whole thing. That's tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I made notes on all the things that would need to be different for me to do this again. So I know what I'm not confused about what has to happen, which is nice. I am uncertain as to whether I have it in me to give that much again.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like those modes of communication where you have to, in certain circles, we would call that like, oh, they're going to tone police you, right? But you've got to tone police yourself in order to get anything done. But then you're lowering your standards in order to do that, because what you really want to be able to say is just, that needs to be better. That can't be that way. I need this to be like this. And if you say it too straightforwardly, it's going to sound like you're harassing them or haranguing them or demeaning them or telling them that what they've done is not good enough, so they're a bad person, or all that bullshit that goes into that.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of an interesting moment now, because this is funny. And I think I sent Rami a message about this, which I'm going back on a little bit now on what I said to them. I think that was to Rami. Anyway, the venue, really badly mishandled our opening night. And it was...
Right, you told the story on here.
I know. I'm just trying to give a context and then a thing. And took no responsibility for that, except for one person who felt bad for me. That was as far as she could go. She didn't really take responsibility. She just empathized with my pain, which was better than what the rest of them were doing, which was taking no responsibility and shaming me and being mad at me for being sad. So it was fucked up. Now, from day one that we got in there, they've been sending us, emails that are like, would you fill out this survey answering questions about how good or bad it was to work with us? What was it like for you working with the center of blah, 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 blah? And I just kept not answering and not answering and not answering, going like, the minute all the checks are paid and everybody's done with each other fully, I can't wait to sit down and tell you exactly how this went for me. What are my feelings? Oh, you want to know? I'll fucking tell you now. I'm waiting on that one too, because as you can hear, the Enneagram 8 vengeance part of me is up and wants to enact itself and seek revenge. I want to punish them. I want them to
hold them responsible.
I want them to hurt.
Yeah.
I want them to see themselves, and I want them to own that they fucked up. So what I'm working through now is how much of that is vengeance and how much of it is appropriate, not okayness because they did a bad job. And this is something I wanted to get into on here last week as I was thinking this week about what I want to talk about here. The thing that's really up for me lately is spiritual conditioning. meaning like all the things that spiritual systems teach about how, quote, quote, people should be. I'm all into human design. And the deeper I've gotten, the more I realize there really isn't a way people should be. There's who are you and what is correct for you.
Right.
So in the past, I would have believed something like never burn a bridge or be sure to be nice to them, because that's this be generous always, forgive everything, let everything go.
Right.
But I understand my chart better now. And I also understand appropriate anger better now. And I understand that we spiritually bypass around anger a lot in this culture, particularly spiritual people. Spiritual people never think anger is okay. Everybody thinks anger is like anti-consciousness, which is absolutely not true.
Right.
So I'll give an example of where it was appropriate. And I don't have an answer for myself yet about how much of it to put in this email, which will be being written. I'm just like waiting to write it to when I can use appropriate anger to say kindly what needs to be said clearly, but also not pretend it was okay.
Right.
Because it wasn't.
And even the kindly part is like,
yeah, clearly.
Clearly, you want to do it clearly. And if you use vengeance-y language, it steps out of that space. So like, how do you be as clear as you can, cruel to be kind without, you don't have to be nice, but you don't have to be vengeance either. But like, you have to be direct.
I don't want to be nice, but I don't want to punish them.
Right.
So that's where I have to police myself as I get into punishing people. Like vengeance for me has to do with like, and now you will suffer, dick.
Right.
Now that's like, I'm trying to punish them now. But let's back up, because if you recall my experience in Colorado, where this was a really good one. And I also learned this lesson teaching CEOs at Stanford in the continuing studies department. I would go to therapy every week while teaching these people and be like, okay, I need you to help me understand which of this anger is appropriate and which of it is me having an issue from my dad,
Right.
And we did that. We parsed it out. She'd be like, no, that's inappropriate what he's doing. You should be mad and your aggression is appropriate. He needed you to be aggressive or he wasn't going to shut his white guy rich mouth. And I was like, cool. So she really helped me understand appropriate aggression and appropriate anger, really. But because I am an 8, I have to really still just like give myself, I have total permission inside myself to be as filled with rage as I am. And the people closest to me hear about it, that's for sure. But when it comes to communicating to them, I'm trying to find the sweet spot, right? So the example I was going to give is when that guy stalked me in Colorado. And it was like the real first time in a long time where the spiritual conditioning of like, just stay out of the fray, don't engage at his level, don't fight fire with fire.
Don't enter his field.
It all just like, I knew that what I was being asked to do was actually step in and stand up for that. This is not okay. Men who are kooky about women don't get to then be harassing and violent of those women. You have to do your own work, men. So you don't get to behave that way while you're still healing. No, you're going to go to jail if you behave that way, because the consequences have to exist so that people are motivated to learn. So I did so much work to get that guy his justice, and he got it. And it was very helpful, healing, and satisfying to me. And it was a spiritual awakening for me to realize there are times when just letting it go is not the spiritually highest choice in a 3D body. That guy he spent a few nights in jail. He was on probation for 6 months to a year. Maybe it was a year. He paid me $5,500 and it took him a year to do it. I got checks every other month from him. And he had to take all these classes on anger management and whatever. That feels very good to me. Not just because, yeah, fuck you, dick. You should suffer the way I did, though I do feel that way. But also because if a white woman who has a flexible job that allows her to the time in the middle of the day to call the sheriff's office 8 times so that they'll do their job, because they just weren't doing it, doesn't stand up against this guy, the next woman he's going to do it to is a brown woman who's got 3 jobs and 3 kids, who can't afford to sit on the phone for 4 hours calling the sheriff to get the sheriff to get a restraining order and call the other sheriff in the other county where he worked, not lived, to make sure the restraining order was valid in both towns, and then to file the paperwork at the third county where I live. The amount of work I had to do just to get like justice to occur, I had the energy for it and the time and the privilege. So
you got to use it. Well, that, as you've been describing that, it's been occurring to me like not vengeance on the venue, but, CCing the county council or the city council or CCing somebody, I don't know how this organization is associated, CCing the board of directors with your response to not to punish them to get them fired, but to say this can't happen again. If you are actually interested in improving your services, there's you have to do things better and you have to handle them better.
Yeah.
And here is where you didn't handle it better.
The thing is, the question is, like Eric was saying, and he makes a good point. He's like, when you can't, like, when you go to the DMV, you can't be like, be a better functioning machine, DMV. It isn't a well-oiled machine. It's a shitty machine that operates how it operates, and you will get your license if you do what they say. And because nobody's getting paid enough to give a fuck. So he was like, you're going to the DMV and you're asking them to be, the Guthrie Theater. And I'm like, that's true. And I think what I need to say is something like, this is where I'm taking my time in my response, is because I'm like, I need to own up at the top of it. I plan to take ownership of my part in all of it before I say anything about them. And part of my part in it is I believed you when you said you were excited for a professional level team to come in. I also failed in that I didn't ask you what that meant to you. I thought we were on the same page about what professional means, but I didn't ask you. I really didn't ask enough questions. What are the standards? There's a million things I now know what I should have asked. So I want to open with something like that. Like, I recognize that I was functioning in your space as if you were X, Y, and Z, but I've now realized that you are A, B, and C. That's on me for making that assumption. What is not okay for me, and what I would suggest to you, or like something I'd like you to think about, is you need to be quite clear when people hand you $14,000 to rent your space. It's a lot of money. We are A, B, and C, and we allow for D, E, F, G, and H. We are not X, Y, and Z. Are you good with that?
Exactly.
Because there are some things that are so obvious from my lens that should never be okay, like a quinceañera 10 feet away from opening night.
Or any performance, not even opening night.
Or any performance. And to find out that had happened before and no one's changed anything, it's beyond my understanding. Now, again, that's because I have expectations of from a 10 and they are living at a 2. So I didn't have to rent there. They could say, well, fuck off. We have plenty of renters who are not mad at us. And so how I want to frame it all is, you have every right to operate however you want to operate. I just want you to know that if you're looking for anything else like this, high quality, professional, blah, 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 this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. And also broke my heart personally, and also was very difficult on my whole team. So that really sucked for us. Now, if you don't care about that, I respect that. You do you, we'll do us. That's okay.
Right.
But I don't feel like I can just skulk away and not say anything.
Well, for me, I think the thing about like holding anybody responsible for anything has to do with like how the guy who came down randomly to supposedly help handled it, which was not at all. He like literally, there are baselines to a job that you are paid for, whether you're paid well or not. And he did not execute on that agreement.
No, he broke my heart too. He really, that really sucked.
And to the point of also actually kind of harassing you and
yeah,
attacking you, which seems completely unacceptable.
It was rough.
So that would be the part that for me, I love what you said though. It's like, if you're saying you're this, then my feedback is you're not this. So please don't say that you are. Probably not in your best interest to say that you are XYZ if you are ABC.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine who's an event planner, or who used to be an event planner, I should say. And she was saying, oh God, that's awful. I wish we had talked about this before, because I was an event planner before. And she said, she told me some hilarious stories. She's like, one time they had a radiology conference in a hotel conference room, or some kind of conference space. And next door to the little nerdy radiologists, like projecting their like science pie graphs onto a screen and being like, now if you see a figure 7, and they're quiet and they're all scared and all they have is water and coffee. In the conference room next door was an S&M convention with a live DJ for 24 hours. Like lights and people doing ecstasy and people, she was like, people were like with ball gags and chains and leashes. So the little radiology guys would come out and be like, oh my. And there were people having sex behind the tree in the hallway next to the bathroom, which, hey, fucking S&M it up,
yeah,
motherfuckers. But the venue to not have thought or given a fuck to say to the radiology conference, hey, by the way, on January 7th, next to you with a thin wall between you and them will be people fucking, like thousands of people fucking loudly and slapping each other with leather and like putting needles into, is that a thing you're okay with?
Yeah.
So then she said to me, this is my friend, she was like, it happened to us 3 times with our event planning thing. And then we realized how naive we were being to think the venue gave any fucks about who's next to who.
So you actually have to ask these questions.
Yes, you have to walk in asking. And that's on me too, because I walked in naively like, well, nobody's gonna it would never have occurred to me that this would be a thing, because it would be crazy to do that. For me, if I ran the venue, I would never put a quinceañera with 500 people and a live band 10 feet from a play.
Or if I had to, because we got to pay the bills, I would have to approach my pre-existing renter and say, I just need you to know you probably are going to have to cancel your opening night.
Or, hey, would you be okay moving opening night to a different date? To which I would have said,
yeah. Or just don't perform that night or whatever. Yeah.
Sure. No problem. Yeah. Nobody thought of that?
Yeah.
And the answer is no.
No, because it's 2 different departments. Yeah. But that's the thing. It's like one of the things, they have a nice theater. It is a theater. It's not a lecture hall. It is an actual, honest sort of a theater. It doesn't have dressing rooms. You have to go and whatever. But
there was a green room that we made into dressing rooms. They had dressing. It was nice.
Yeah. It is an actual theater. So theater has certain baseline requirements, like not screaming DJ noise right outside the door. It's just a baseline requirement of theater. Can't do it. Just can't do it.
No, but their response will be like, yeah, but if you have like 6th graders and they do 2 shows in one weekend and that's it, you can do whatever you want, because the parents are happy. And I'm like, cool, that's my point.
But guess what? Those 6th graders are not doing their 2 shows at the same time as the quinceañera still. That's still.
But they would.
Yeah, I don't know if they should.
There.
Yeah.
So that's what
Anyway, yeah, it's hard. It's like, it's sharing the feedback brutally, but not cruelly.
Yeah. The problem in this situation is pretty specific and interesting. I think it's misogynistic, actually, the problem. I think it's sexism, because it's both systemic DMV-ism and sexism, because the one woman who had empathy for me she was in the position of being between me and the city. So the city would give her these crazy restrictions that she'd have to enforce with me. And I'd be like, but if we have that restriction, we literally can't do what we're doing. And no one told me that when I signed this contract. And she'd say, I know how production is. You're right. You need to be able to do that thing. But if I go back to the city, they don't understand how production works. So they're just going to be mad at me and they're going to give me shit. And they always tell me I'm too pushy. And I was like, who are these people? She's like, the 2 men that run the place who have never stepped foot into a theater. And I'm like, so let me get this right. The city contracted you, they're a theater management company that took over this theater that's inside this city space. And their whole job is to run the theater because they know how theater is. But they're not allowed to run the theater by the terms of what makes production work. They have to run it by the terms set by 2 old white guys in a city office who know nothing about it. So now the woman the middle-aged woman in the middle between these two worlds is told she's too pushy, when I guarantee you, if a man were in there, that would not be what that man was hearing.
Exactly.
They'd be like, what an innovative set of new ideas you have about how to do this. Man we believe in just because you're a man. But she was characterized that way. So she was between a rock and a hard place.
Shit.
And then there was me coming in being like, what? And then bro who came down to quote, quote, help me, who just...
That's the guy I want vengeance on. I you know me, I'm not a vengeance guy at all, but I fucking want him to dangle.
Thank you.
And by dangle, I mean like from his testicles.
I agree.
With like needles.
Yep.
That guy.
Yeah.
That guy. And that guy is, by your description, also massively misogynist.
I mean, that guy is so far out. I'm looking forward to writing about him in the feedback form, but also I have to be very choosy about how my words so that I don't just, and this is fucked that I have to give a fuck, quote, quote, sound like a crazy, angry woman.
Yeah. Fuck that. But also, yep.
Yeah.
If you want to get your message across, you have to police your own tone.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be heard.
Yeah. Wah, wah.
Wah, wah, wah.
All right. These are good talks. I'm glad we talked about this because I really want to, I think for the coming weeks, you know, I really want to keep talking about spiritual conditioning and the lies of it because I'm all personally done with it. Like I'm all set with that. But there's subtleties to it and there's nuance and I want to keep breaking those down. I think that'll be cool.
Yeah. Well, as I told you a little bit, I know it's not the spiritual conditioning, it's back to the misogyny thing. Like I told you a little bit in our session and today, just becoming aware of like talking about appropriate anger, like that's.
Oh, right.
Like I've been struggling to where I can feel my anger because I don't want to feel angry at women for this reason because that just feels wrong. I can't do it. I cannot feel that anger. So I'm like, where's that anger? And I'm starting to find where the anger is appropriate. And it's at this same fucking thing we're talking about. It is deeply systemic. It is where we think we are entitled to something because we were born with a dick, you know, and.
Yeah, but hold on.
And I'm part of that. And I am part of that. And I'm mad at the parts of myself that have felt that.
Yeah, but there's something incorrect there, Cass, because there's nothing wrong with anyone feeling angry about anything they feel angry about inside themselves. It's what you do with it externally that becomes a problem. So in your case, you're sort of the opposite thing. My hope for you is we're helping you lean into your anger inside, because that's how you're going to get to the sadness and the hurt behind the anger, which then that's where the rest of the healing happens. So, but the idea that men should never be angry at women because of systemic problems, I don't think that's right either. You get to be angry if you're angry.
Right.
It's about working through it in yourself so that you don't act out at all women because you feel hurt and angry.
Yeah.
That's the whole problem and why the systemic man thing stays alive is that men have nowhere safe to go to be pissed.
Exactly. Or feels. Yeah.
Yes. Now you're violent if you're a man with anger and you're weak if you're a man with sadness. So what are you supposed to do?
Yep.
Rape a couple bitches in the street.
Right. And then you are an angry man with violence or a depressed, sad person with sadness instead of being able to feel those feelings.
That's right.
And actually have them.
That's why I'm really into these men's groups that exist now. Like men kind of learning how to be men again. Like men are not women. No, nobody likes that fucking sentence right now. And non-binary folks are not men and they're not women. We have to be what we are.
Yeah.
So like men that identify as men need to have places they can have rage and sorrow and hurt and fear.
Right. Which aren't, except rage is the only one that men are, quote, get to be associated with by the sort of standard definition.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is they don't have anywhere healthy to put it, so it gets put unhealthfully.
Right.
But to make rage the problem, that's another toxic choice. Rage is not a problem. What one does with one's rage is the thing.
Yeah.
Rage is going to come up. If you're alive on Earth, You're going to have some rage.
Yeah.
The question is, how do you process it so you don't enact it in your life?
Yeah.
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 And I feel for men genuinely, because unless you actively join a men's group or you're going into the woods and learning how to like rage about women, where are you putting all that?
Right.
You're either internalizing it, in your case, becoming so nice that all your anger goes inward, or you're externalizing it at women.
Yep.
So it's not exactly your fault. It's, again, the fucking system that only changes if we each take some fucking action to take care of ourselves and then teach other people how to do that.
Yeah.
I like want to be part of a men's group. I'm like, what man do I know that I can support in his men's grouping? Jesus.
Got a partner.
You want to start a men's group?
No, you got a partner. Get him into one. Get him going.
Oh, Jesus. No, I want to have a male friend who's running men's groups.
Oh, so you can have input.
I want to be like, hey, every man I know, go to this.
Right.
It's like I haven't been to, I can't because I'm female. How do I know if the men's group being offered is legit and good?
Oh, right. You want to make sure you're not. Right, because even the concept of a men's group is loaded because, like, well, we're going to go express our rage about women and feed it. No, that's different.
Right. I mean, you're
just going to amplify it. No.
Yeah, you got to have good male leaders who know what it is to be a spiritually evolved man, which is a complicated thing to be.
Yeah.
So.
True that.
Good stuff. Good talk. I got to go. You're the best.
Okay. Have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you later, darling.
Every day. Let's all do our work.
Bye. Bye.
Are you asking for all of the answers? Say what? All of the answers? Yeah, all the answers.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. We'd love to hear from you. Please email us with your questions so that we have questions to answer in the Akashic Records. Our email address is allanswerspod@gmail.com. That's allanswerspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to find us on Facebook or Twitter, it's @allanswerspod. @allanswerspod. Thank you.
Mixed and edited by Desmond McNeese for We Mixed It, LLC. Go to whatsoundsawesome.com.